I think at that time, my goal was just to be able to make $2,500 a month or something. So I paid the bills. Literally, I think it was 8 months later, I was selling $100,000 of this foot mask online. So we got a call from this multi-billion-dollar corporation in Canada, and they wanted to place an order for, and they ended up placing an order for around $27 million. Got a loan to basically start production, and we get an email from the retailer saying we were very incorrect in our forecast and we have to cancel everything. In that moment, I was basically facing bankruptcy, and I personally guaranteed everything.
Okay, all right, Addy, welcome to the pod. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, but I know we've known each other for a bit through Ecom North, but I actually haven't sat down and like just talk to you. So this is a great way for just me to know your story too.
Yeah.
Because some guests, like I'll know them prior, but like I don't really know you prior to this.
Yep.
From what I know, you've started 6 companies in the DTC space. You've exited from 3 of them, which is insane. And then recently you acquired, I think, 2 companies.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, I mean, your story seems crazy. You've done a lot. I guess just take me back to, I guess, like the beginning. Like, give me the lore. When did you start your first DTC company?
Yeah, it was, a few months after I graduated from university. And it was the only thing I could think of as far as entrepreneurship, because I wasn't a coder. I didn't have any real technical skills. Really, what I could do is sell. And internet just seemed like a good way to sell, because it was just needed an internet connection and a website.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, got a buddy of mine to build a website, because this is right around the time. This is before Shopify was like really popular. So you had to build a website.
What year is this?
End of 2012, beginning of 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we put together just a, crappy website. And at that time, subscription commerce was booming, where this idea of you get a box full of different products delivered to your mail became just something that people were interested in. So we put up a website and, started a subscription service. And, initially it was just me going to Dollarama, getting 20 different boxes, which and
Cardboard boxes?
Cardboard boxes. So
yeah.
They looked like, they did not look good, but I made them look as good as I could. I got little ribbons. I got my brand sticker printed at Staples.
So you weren't going to China for supply. You were just going to Dollarama, just starting out like scrap.
It didn't even occur to me I should go to China, because I didn't know anybody who was selling online. I didn't know people order in volumes.
And at the time, like there was probably not that much content on YouTube or the internet that was talking about dropshipping, talking about like
none at all.
Yeah.
This is this was just when, in my case, I was just experimenting myself, and really didn't have any context of where do you sell, how do you sell, and so I probably was very inefficient when I was beginning. But put these boxes together, and I started calling manufacturers of different companies, of different brands, and I said, hey, we're launching a new way to get your brand exposed to thousands of people. Would you be interested in sending us samples? Because the idea was you have the small box. You can't really put big full-size products in it. So we were asking companies for samples.
So the product you would be selling is technically free of cost for you.
Correct.
Right? So they're just sending you free samples.
Our only cost was the box and shipping.
Yeah.
Because initially I was boxing everything. It's funny because I was actually delivering the boxes myself.
You just drive up?
I didn't think I should call UPS. And I had a couple of customers look at me funny, like this guy doesn't look like he's from UPS. So I was just delivering it to them. And
did you do that for your first 20 orders? How long did you do that for?
I did it until I started to get really funny looks. And then I thought, okay, I should call up. I actually found a service which would be able to deliver to U.S. customers at a much reduced cost.
I see.
But before that, when I called these brands, they were very excited to talk, because manufacturers are generally really poor at branding themselves and getting the word out.
Yeah.
So, a week later, I had about $30,000 worth of product. I don't know. They sent me just more product than I knew what to do with.
Were you living at home at the time?
Yeah.
So the basement.
Yeah, I was living that with my mom. And so the entire downstairs was packed with just free product. And now my problem was not so much how do I, the problem now was I had way too much products.
Yeah.
And it was a good problem, but So we decided, let's find some of these people online who tend to review beauty products. You know, they're girls just love to sample and try different products out. So we just started messaging them, direct messaging on YouTube saying, hey, we have the subscription service where we're bringing the best brands in the world in a box. We would love to send you a box to try out.
Free to,
Yeah. And at that time, influencers were a very different game than it is now.
Yeah.
They were all happy to get the product. I think we had probably 2 or 3 out of 50 asked us for money. But yeah, the first 20 boxes that we had gotten, we shipped them out to influencers. And, next thing you know, at the end of the week, I had my first sale on PayPal. And, that was probably the best order, I've ever had. It was just a, feeling of elation. And that was when I was in business. I just knew I just need to replicate and extrapolate this into 2,000 influencers, 20,000 influencers. So I didn't know that I would run into you can't just scale up influencer that way. But yeah, we've got to, I think 60, 70,000 in sales relatively quickly a month. And
that's insane. I mean, that's 60, 70, that's basically like 1 million ARR roughly, right? And then you did that. Was it in your first year of running that, second year?
I would say it was, I think 4 or 5 months after I launched that, I quit my job. And so that was probably within 6 to 7 months.
That's super fast. So then it just, back then, influencer marketing was just completely untapped. And then that was just super efficient, right? Because the cost of the box is just shipping. It's $30 for shipping. In return, you get millions of eyeballs for free on these boxes. And people are now wanting to get them, try it.
Yeah. And shipping wasn't even that much. I think shipping was $5.50 because
it's cheaper back then. Well, the box is small.
Well, because it's all about the size and the weight of the box.
Yeah.
So we always had to make sure we were below a certain weight.
Yeah.
And we worked with the carriers that had fixed rate shipping. So really our cost was $5.50 for shipping, another $1 for the company that was handling all of our shipments.
What did it cost on the customer's end to buy that box?
We had 2 products or subscriptions. One was $25 and one was $35 or $39.
See, but back then, I'm assuming margins was good because your marketing cost is basically zero.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It was almost we weren't spending anything.
That's great.
It was just up until that point we weren't really spending anything, and then later on we had to get into Facebook advertising because you just can't scale it beyond it. Yeah. So started learning about Facebook ads. We started doing that ourselves, and then eventually brought on agencies to do it.
I want to retract back. So you said after college you started this. Did you work a job in between, or is it just right away?
So I knew before I graduated I was going to start something. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And I felt at the time that I had to go get a job. And so I did. I had 3 different jobs in that 7-month period. And then the last one, luckily the business took off. But yeah, I had a job in telecommunications. I had a job my most fun job, where I think I was there probably for 4 months, was with the startup I found on the front page of Globe and Mail. There was this gentleman with just on the front page, and it basically they were selling a $25 or $35 tablet, which was unheard of. And their goal was to sell it in poor countries and just sell millions of them. And I just showed up at the guy's office and I said, "Hey, I would love to work here."
True. Back in the day, everyone had a physical office. These days, half the companies don't have a physical, so you just show up.
It's totally, bro. And I asked for a job. I said, "Hey, I want to work here."
Yeah.
And he said, "You don't have a job." I was like, "Can you create one? I'll take a pay cut. I'll work for whatever you need." Because that environment really spoke to me, the startup environment where you're just growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And so he created a job for me, and I was basically working as the right-hand man of the CEO, where I was now on calls with all these investment bankers and government heads, talking to them about these tablets that we were going to sell. And so, and then I got into a sales role, which allowed me to build my business on the side. But yeah, there was about 7 months where I worked in different jobs and never looked back since.
So 7 months, 3 jobs in 7 months, which is
Yeah.
did you do all 3 at the same time, or you did like it was one after the other?
One after the other.
Okay.
I didn't, I just wanted to go all in on whatever I was going to do. And none of them felt like I could go all in. So
Did you so you said you knew you wanted to start something even during college?
yeah.
So as a founder myself and like just meeting so many founders over the years, the reoccurring theme that I see is like usually there's a really good reason why as to why you want to do your own thing. What was it for you? How did you find out, or how did you realize like, oh, I want to do my own thing, I want to start my own business?
Yeah, it was probably when I came to Canada. Coming here made me realize what an opportunity it was.
When did you come to Canada?
2004.
Yeah. And at the time, were you like middle school, high school?
I was in high school.
You're in high school.
Yeah. I just gotten into high school, so grade 10. And I came from India, it was a different environment back there. And coming here allowed me to really just realize that I can do whatever I want. Like, I can really create something here. And I did not want to, I wanted to do something that made it worth the entire journey of picking up an entire family and moving it across the continent.
Hey.
And so I guess as an immigrant, I just had a chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to, and I felt like business was really the only, but entrepreneurship and business just felt like a blank canvas where you can go and paint whatever you want. And so it was just that idea that, you could try creating something and it could, there's an end product out there.
Yeah. What did you see since coming to Canada that like made you realize that? Was it like exposure to meeting like founders after you came? Was it like seeing, maybe were your parents like small business owners? Like what made you realize like that this was a world of possibilities?
I guess there was a couple of things. One was things that I was observing externally, in terms of, just coming across people that I thought were doing interesting things, and they tended to be entrepreneurs. They were building amazing, cool things, and that was part of it. But I guess the more meaningful thing was I just knew the hardship that my ancestors had to get through for me to come and be in this position of really privilege. And I just felt like I couldn't waste that. And so I wanted to do something with it. And I just felt that entrepreneurship was the one vehicle for me to really explore the different boundaries, because I felt there was no profession, at least that I could see at the time, where I wasn't just going to be on a very narrow path. Yeah. And I was just going to stay on that path, and nothing wrong with that path. I just didn't think it would appeal to me, because I had the sense that if I went down the path of, let's say, becoming a doctor or an engineer, what if it turns out to be the wrong one? What if I don't want to be on that path? And it just felt like a big risk to, not be able to explore down the line if I wanted to, which is what I've been able to do now. Yeah, I can do different things. But this was, that was just, I guess, something that I knew. I just, wanted to be able to have diverse experiences.
That makes sense.
As a founder.
Yeah. I think that I resonate that too. I think it's really interesting how perspective changes how we think about things, because if you ask most people, they think that doctors, engineers are less risky and that entrepreneurship is more risky, right? But then like how you phrase it, how you see it also makes a lot of sense, because, okay, you're going to be, I don't know, like 8 to 10 years into school, then you start work. And then if you don't like it, you're like 12 years deep.
Totally.
Which is massively risky if you think about it. Yeah. But then to most people, that's not. That's right.
That's in your prime, right? Like back then, one thing that I was really, really acutely aware of was that 1 year in my 20s is going to be more like 5 years in my 30s and 10 years in my 40s and 50s, in terms of the amount of risk I could take, in terms of how big I could think, in terms of just how I was not burdened with experience. And so that period in your 20s, I just felt was the only time that is there to 20s and 30s. Like, it can be done anytime, but each year that
just gets tougher later. Yeah.
Like that's the time to try something, because otherwise the risk is too much.
It seems to me like you're very self-aware and very like mature at like a younger age. I'm 28 right now, but I didn't feel like around college, which is 18 to 22, like I had none of that. Like I wasn't thinking about that. So did you feel like for you, maybe the move to Canada in high school, which is like a very formative age, you feel like it forced you to mature and grow up faster? You think you would have been on a different path if you kind of stayed and didn't have to go like what made you like just like think so deep like so young?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't think I was thinking deep. But honestly, it was the perfect age for there to be a lot of I guess internal chaos. You're coming from a very comfortable environment where you have lots of friends, coming in a country where you can't even put a sentence together properly. Have people around you laughing, and that was challenging, right? And that made me want to excel, and I just felt like I had to prove to myself that I'm not the average person here. I always felt that I only below average, so I gotta be above average. And so I think, that played a big role. And I think if I had come much earlier, let's say if I was 2, or if I came in my 30s or even 20s, I think that same degree of internal chaos would have subdued a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a perfect age. When you're 16,
You would have been comfortable. It would have been...
Because when you're that age, you're in an environment where you're really seeking a lot of approval from peers.
Yeah. That's the age where you're like, people are starting to date. You're like past puberty. You're like in the self-exploration phase. Your identity is really strong at the time. Like you're very, very aware of what's going on at like 15, 16 type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I always found myself a bit of a loner. And loner in the sense I had a lot of great friends, but I always felt I didn't fit in. And as a result of that, I had a lot of time to myself to like think about what I want to do. I even remember before getting into university, it was just my teachers would tell me, "Hey, you're thinking too much about this. Like you just pick whatever school you want to go to." And I ended up going into business school because I felt I needed to learn business, which turns out you don't need to go to business school to learn business.
Facts.
But yeah, I think it was a lot of just introspection as a result of not fitting in, that kind of led me to forge an identity that wasn't there before.
Yeah. I see that as a common thread of like, I think I definitely didn't feel like I fit in when I was at my job. And I felt like there was something wrong with me. Right. But then that's kind of what I see a lot is that we didn't fit into whatever systems there were. And I think it's a blessing in disguise, to kind of forge your own path. So I guess fast forward. So your first business seems to be like insanely successful 5 to 6 months in. Did you realize at the time how fast you were growing and how did it feel surreal and crazy? Did you expect to basically get to 1 million ARR in like your first 6 months? You know what I mean? Like
I was definitely not expecting it. No, definitely wasn't expecting it. I always knew I wanted to, but it was not something I was, I think at that time my goal was just to be able to make $2,500 a month or something, because that would have allowed
pay the bills.
Pay the bills, buy yourself a runway is how I thought about it. Because early on, it's all about just buying yourself a runway. Yeah. And, if you're in a job, it clouds your thinking because you're getting this comfortable paycheck every 2 weeks, right? And it's very hard to say no to them.
A little bit of a sedative.
Totally. And so in order to not be bothered by that, I had to create a runway where I could just focus on that runway, right? And so for me, that was $2,500 a month. And so when we started to get to tens of thousands a month in sales, it was a surprise. Yeah. And we weren't expecting it to go to that, in like 6-7 months. But yeah, at that time, my only goal was to get independence from the traditional way of, I did not like the idea of going into a place where the people that I was surrounded by, I needed to create my own culture. I didn't fit into the culture that I
want to be somewhere where you can be yourself.
Yeah. And, people that fit my values are welcome to join that culture. But yeah, I just didn't, like you're saying, when you went to the job, it's like,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it happened quite quickly, but that was the primary reason why.
I see. And then so after hitting that 6 months in, you were, product market fit is there, you're scaling, things are going well. What happens next? Did you sell that company or did you keep growing it and managing it over the years?
Kept growing it. And there are some companies which you should just exit out of, and it's good to know when to do that. I didn't know it at the time, because initially you have that bravado. It's like, I'm going to take this thing to, 10, 100,000x.
I'm assuming back then there's no, the internet is just not as developed at that point, where there's not as much information about exits and acquisitions. Like you just don't know. But in hindsight, did you wish you would have exited that one?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question, because I think.
And why is that? So I guess you can give me almost like a crash course on what type of businesses, how should I evaluate if I should exit my business or not, or should I keep running it? What's your gauge for it?
Yeah, so I would say the first one would be, am I still enjoying what I'm building? And do I wake up in the morning, just kind of die to get in front of the computer to, check everything and, craft the next offer or whatever it was that I was doing. I just felt I had lost a little bit of that enthusiasm for it. So that would be the first yardstick is, are you still really involved and interested in what you're doing? Because if you're not, then you basically peaked. Because
yeah, you're not motivated to do it. Therefore, what's going to drive it to grow? Because you're the main driver in a way.
Yeah, and the other was if you're unable to really see what is going to take you to the next level, if that's not entirely clear, if you don't have a path towards that, which was the case in our situation, because we had been reliant primarily on influencer marketing, and we felt like we were hitting a ceiling on that. And we hadn't done any advertising, hadn't tried meta ads at that time. And so that was another indicator is, there's only so long before you start to peak. And we peaked in terms of our sales. So I think in hindsight, there were a lot of things we could have done. I just wasn't sure what we could have done to break past that ceiling. Yeah, really, I think the main thing just comes down to are you still interested in growing this? And I think it had borne out. I was getting involved in other projects. I'd started building other brands, and that's a whole different topic. Is how do you juggle the different projects you're involved in, or is it better to just do one at a time?
I see. So it sounds like the two things you got to take in. Both has to do with stagnancy, but one is stagnancy driven by your own lack of motivation or passion. The other stagnancy is just driven by a mix of whether it's execution or product market fit or competition, but if growth becomes stagnant and you don't see a path forward to 20, 40, 60% growth every year, then it's then it doesn't make sense to keep running it. You should just sell it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I would say the second is actually a byproduct of the first.
They're kind of tied. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you have the enthusiasm, you will figure out.
You will find a way.
So I would say it's 90% the first one.
Over 6 businesses, what do you see as the common thread or the pattern behind why/when do you start to lose that passion for a certain business? I guess that's something I'm really interested in, because I'm on my first right now.
Yeah.
I am dabbling in side projects, and I can sense days here and there where I'm ooh, I'm more excited about that side thing right now. But then I come, it's back and forth. So you're multiple chapters ahead of me. What do you see as that pattern, or why does it happen?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say if you find yourself chasing the door prize rather than playing the game, that's a good indicator that this is not going to have enough fuel. Because there's a lot of, there were some businesses I got involved in purely just to make money, right? And they were making money, but the moment they weren't, it was causing a lot of chaos. And so that up and down cycle is just a byproduct of waiting for that, what I call door prize. You're waiting to get to the door so you can be handed this trophy or be given the cash or whatever that is.
So you see, like in the businesses you're involved in, where the only reason was for money, was where like because you're like because like you're not. It's like you don't really are not as passionate about the product or like the problem you're solving, or like you're not a customer of the product itself. So then those things usually give you some sense of interest or passion or fulfillment. But if they're not present, then it's harder, right? When
like the core, I would say, is the passion / enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And on the peripheries are these things like the money or the fame or the self-image or anything that is attached to an outcome. Whereas the businesses that I felt I did best at were the ones where those peripheral things weren't at stake so much, because I was just enjoying the building of the actual product or the service.
I see.
And those are the ones that really did way better than the others, because the result was a byproduct.
I see.
The result was not the goal.
Yeah, you were not aiming for a number. You just were enjoying the process, and it ended up working out.
Yeah, I was surprised when the number was good, and I was not dismayed when the number was bad.
Yeah.
So I was there for the craft, for what I was building.
That makes sense.
And I think that is a good yardstick, is what is the motivation behind what I'm pursuing and building.
Yeah, that makes sense. So then you felt like with the first business, how long after running it did you start to feel like, okay, like I'm working on side projects that were more interesting? And then did you wind it down? Did you sell it, or you just like kept it kind of stagnant? Like what was the outcome of the first business?
It ended up getting wound down over time. And I just exited from that. Exited in the sense, it wasn't an acquisition. It was just, that business was very much, the motivation behind that business was to exit the corporate ladder.
It was to prove that this path is viable.
Well, not
right?
so much
like,
prove, just like it has to happen.
Yeah, like it needs to work.
Yeah. And when that happened, the question was, hey, now I have financial freedom. I'm able to travel wherever I want. I'm working the remote life.
Yeah.
I don't have to be at work.
Yeah, back in 2012, that's like insane. That's like extra.
This was 2013, 2014.
But still, that's still insane for 2013. Like that's so early if you think about it.
It totally was. And I mean, I remember I was probably the only one traveling out of all my buddies. They would just be asking me, when are you coming back? I'm not coming back. Come back to what? And so, once I reached that state where, survival was not the primary thing driving me, that's when I started to think about, like, should I be doing this? Should I pursue something different? Should I? And so, that one, led to the formation of a second subscription service, and then eventually ended up getting into D2C, or, starting your own brand, building it on either Shopify or Amazon.
Yeah.
That was kind of the end of the subscription phase.
The subscription era is. Yeah. Tell me, I mean, there's 6 businesses. I don't know if you want to cover every single one, but like, what would you feel like were the most significant or defining ones that you want to talk about? Like the first 2 are subscription. Then I'm assuming the third one is your first DTC brand that you started yourself. Like, yeah, like I'll let you, like, which one do you want to talk about, I guess? Yeah,
I feel like the most interesting one would probably be this skincare brand that I launched called Grace Stella. And that one was interesting because it was just an interesting market to be in. And, there was a component of reaching the customer directly online, but I also had the chance to get into retail.
Yeah.
So
what does the product do? Like,
so over the course of that brand, we probably had 70 or 80 different products. But the main one that put us on the map was a foot peeling mask. So, essentially, maybe if I step backward, how I got into that.
Yeah.
My dad had brought this product over for my mom to try. It was just sitting on the table, and she wasn't trying it. It was just, it was a Japanese product, but I could see on the photo that it was foot related. And then that same week, I happened to run into a guy at a coffee shop, or a co-working space rather, who had a Amazon logo on his screen. And it showed the figure 88,000 something. And I thought, this guy must work at Amazon. Why is he at a co-working space? So I started a conversation with him, and it turned out he sold on Amazon. And that
Back then was a very novel.
yeah, totally. Back then, if you were on Amazon, you had to be an idiot to not make money. It was just crazy times. And this guy was selling wine glasses on Amazon.
Wine glasses.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
This is what, 2016, 2015?
16, 15, yeah, somewhere around there.
Was this the time when Amazon FBA was hot on YouTube?
I guess this is the time when it started to really catch on.
Yeah.
And there were these novice videos that were going viral.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't need a big setup to create a video, but a guy's just, taking a video about his Amazon storefront and how he just started selling $10,000 in the first month, kind of thing. And that was normal. And so when I met this guy, I asked him, hey, like, what do you sell? What are you doing? You work at Amazon? He said, no, I sell wine glasses on Amazon. And I said, that 90,000 or so, is that, when did you sell that? Like, what period? He said, last 30 days. And it caught my attention.
They're like, oh shit.
And that's when I really realized the idea of, I wasn't thinking about it in terms of selling on Amazon. I just realized the idea, I could go to China and skip all of these North American brands that I'm so used to working with, because they're ultimately importing stuff from China or manufacturing it themselves.
You were working with the middleman before, but like, I can go direct.
And that was a real aha moment, because that's where all the margin was, going as direct as you can to the source. So he told me he was buying these from a factory and then just selling them on Amazon. And I went home immediately and I picked up that product on the table that my dad had bought.
Yeah.
And I started to look it up. I said, hey, what product is this? Let me just try this product. I contacted a supplier.
It's crazy that it's in a way, it's just not that deep. It's just like, hey, like, this is a cool business idea. Let me just get the product my dad has and let's just try it. Like,
honestly, it was just about no research, no thinking, no brainstorming,
but just do.
No masterminding. What is it here in front of me right now, right here, that I can just test with?
Yeah.
Like, let me just see what this guy's talking about, right? So I ordered 1,000 units of that product and
of the foot mask.
Right. And what the product did was you would wear it. It was like a pouch. You would put your feet inside the pouch. It had some liquid in it.
Yeah.
And you would keep it there for about 30 minutes. And about a week later, all your dead and dry skin would just peel off.
I've seen it on TikTok and it went viral for like here and there. So yeah, I definitely know about it. Yeah.
TikTok didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
So he sent me, I think I bought each of them for 65 cents each. So that was $650 for the 1,000 units. And another $600 or so for shipping.
Yeah.
And I had him ship it directly to Amazon. And it was literally just a $5 label that I got, $5 logo and a $5 label on Fiverr.
I see.
So it was just...
So when right away you did FBA, you didn't fulfill it yourself. Right away it was FBA, got you.
Luckily, I didn't even think to do it myself.
Yeah. That's a great call. Great call.
Yeah, FBA was the way to go, as it turned out, because for a dozen different reasons. He shipped it to Amazon, and my next job was to get 20 reviews, as that guy selling wine glasses had told me to do. So I called him.
I like that you didn't go on like YouTube and look at it. You're just like, hey, that wine glass guy told me this is a path, and like let me just do it. Like it's just not that complicated. Just go and do it.
Give me the 6 steps. Let me try those 6 steps, and that's it. And then if it doesn't work, I'll come for the 7th. But yeah, that was really it. And started to send it to friends, family, whoever wanted to get a free product, which virtually everybody said yes to.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started to get, 10, 15 reviews, boom, I started getting sales from people I didn't send the product to. And I was like, who? Shit, disaster. Yeah. And literally, I think it was 8 months later, I was selling $100,000 of this foot mask online. And then, it was... And, obviously it required reordering and everything.
Yeah.
But I just went all in on that. And
so you had to do you felt like a lot of it was just like organic / this niche you were early, or you did the whole paid keywords or Amazon search, or what was the strategy to get to 100K?
it was just keep doing what's working.
Yeah.
So I guess I did a couple of things differently than what other people who were also competing in that space they weren't doing. So one, I knew I had a hero product, and I just had this. I just knew that the potential for it to grow to 10x was absolutely there. So what I found a lot of other people doing was prematurely getting into their second product and their third product and their fourth product. I've just wanted to focus on that.
And how did you, what, like, was it just intuition? Like, how did you know this is like that hero product?
I saw my main competitor doing about $1 million a month from that one product.
Okay. So you saw like, okay, the TAM is big. My competitor is doing it. I can do it too.
Yeah. I didn't see anybody else doing anywhere near that.
I see.
But I just felt like there can't just be one person who does $1 million. Like there's got to be room for a second or a third.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of the hunch. And what I did was I then expanded that product into multiple different, we started with different fragrances. So the first one was just the original, which had no scent.
Yeah.
And we went into lavender, rose, peach, lemon, etc.
And all the, I guess, different scents all the reviews aggregates together, right? On one product, which is also...
That's exactly it. And the way Amazon works is there are certain thresholds for review counts that just push you over the edge in terms of not incremental, but,
your ranking, I guess, for...
Ranking, but also a product that's at 7,000 reviews and a product that's at 10,000 reviews, it's only a 30% review difference. The sales difference is generally much higher than 30%.
I see.
So I just had this feeling that I got to get to 1,000 reviews somehow. And then, when I was at 1,000, I knew I could get to 5,000. And then, but
what was the strategy to get more reviews at a time?
It's probably going to be useless today, but there was a lot of, anything, this was like wild, wild west. At that time, there were essentially services that were telling you can purchase reviews.
Yeah, you could sample the products.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I knew we had a great product, so I had no problem doing that. But, we just had a fantastic product and started offering it in multiple different pack sizes. So we were the first ones to go from selling one to selling a pair of 2, 4, 8.
Yeah, like a 12 pack. People who just
we made it. We made a 50 pack, and people are still buying that because there's a lot, and that actually led us to get into wholesale, because most people who were buying the 50 pack weren't consumers; they were wholesalers.
Oh, so they would just sell it at their beauty store.
It was like a spa with 4 locations.
That makes sense. I was like, who needs 50 pairs?
There was a lot of them. Yeah, there were a lot.
Okay, yeah. For them, it's also an easy upsell. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so we got to 6 figures a month, and then I decided, okay, probably should diversify a little bit now. Launched the second product. Same story.
Would you say this is one of the brands where you were like enjoying the process a lot and like...
I enjoyed it later because this was, if things are going well, it's hard not to enjoy. You're right. It's hard to, there was nothing to, it was like basically printing money. It was crazy, and that was a common thread amongst like a lot of people that I met at that time. You get in early, and your room for error increases, and so now your room for error is shrunk a lot.
Now you got to be like 9.5 out of 10 to hit gold. Where back then you could be 6 out of 10, and then you could still get a decent point.
Totally, and it's no different from the gold rush analogy. Yeah, the first person showing up is obviously a gold mine.
Yeah,
the second person shows up with a shovel. There's enough.
Yeah,
10 people can come, 100 people can come. As soon as you get 1,000 guys in there, and there's limited amount of gold, you're going to have warfare.
Yeah,
and there was very little warfare, and it was just everybody can come, just have a big buffet. And so it was
good old days.
Yeah, it was great times. And then, we started going into second, third, fourth different products, started going into wholesale. And that's what I really enjoyed, like the sales aspect. Because selling online, one thing that I always missed was the human component.
The relationships.
It was just not needed.
Yeah.
And so when we started getting into wholesale and retail, it felt way more enjoyable. And it was less about how much profit are we going to make? It was just about the deal. I want to close this deal.
Yeah. There's something just like
Yeah.
fun about it. Like, yeah.
Kept me up at night thinking about how to close it. You know, what else can we do to get into this, whatever the situation happened to be. But yeah, so that we basically branched out of that one product and expanded the brand from there.
So, and then like, where did that end up going? Was this one of the brands you sold?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm assuming this exit, at that time, you were more educated about exits and knowing, okay, when is a good time or when is the right time to do it? So,
By this time I had a team.
yeah.
And so the team was largely managing the whole thing. I was more so just involved in, okay, where's the next X in revenue coming from?
Yeah.
What's the next direction we can take this in? When you have cash flow, you have to do something with that cash flow.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this was one of those businesses which eventually ended up getting acquired. And it went through a whole cycle of, during COVID. It was just a crazy time during COVID.
Shipping costs is one of the biggest line items for any DTC brand. So what if I told you can save up to 75% versus the national carrier? Well, the good news is you actually can. Style & Express is Canada's #1 shipping service, and for a good reason. They are the most affordable way for Canadian DTC brands to ship and fulfill their packages to anywhere in the world. And it's super easy to use. It just takes 5 minutes to create a free account online, input your order, and they'll find the best postage rates across all of the carriers for you. Then you just print it and drop it off at one of the many styling locations near you. They've already helped Canadian brands save over $100 million in shipping costs over the last 10 years. And for listeners of the Warehouse podcast, there's a special offer just for you if you're shipping over 500 orders a month and you're looking for a new and reliable 3PL. So Stallion's 3PL Fulfillment Center is offering $10,000 in shipping credit. Their 3PL has the best shipping prices from Canada to anywhere in the world guaranteed, a 99.99% picking accuracy, 24-hour turnaround from order to shipment, and finally, they operate 365 days a year. So just sign up with the link in the description and get $10,000 of shipping credit today. Was this the first acquisition that you've had, or the first company you sold? Was it Brand, or
This was the third one.
the third one? Okay.
Yeah. So in the middle, I was also involved in a couple of other just marketplace-based brands. Home and kitchen, sporting goods, baby products.
When you say marketplace, you mean like Amazon? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so this one began on Amazon, but it ended up largely not on Amazon.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
You feel like what I've heard is that people's first time going through the process of selling your business is incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
Was it the same shit?
It was excruciating. Like it was probably the worst time of the entire journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my case was slightly different because couple of years before I exited that business, it almost went through bankruptcy. It was just a crazy.
Yeah.
We got into like a huge deal, and it went south. But that impacted the exit because I was not in the right headspace for a little bit.
I see.
We could talk about that if you want, like what happened.
Yeah. Let's get into it. I think it's so the timeline is like. Sorry, give me 1 second. So the timeline was between your first business was around 2013, you said, and then this, like the skincare brand, that exit was around COVID, so like 2021.
After COVID.
So after COVID, was it last year, 2022?
Yeah.
And then I guess you said in between then you've had two other exits, both marketplace brands, and then prior to that was it the bankruptcy impacting these brands that you were going to sell, or was it a different company?
This one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this one got into... during COVID, what happened was we were... I was noticing that there was I just had a kid. So in 2019, I had a baby. And then my wife would ask me to go get sanitizer from the store because he was like, can't have germs. It's a little baby. And so I'd go to these stores and nobody had hand sanitizer.
That's what happened.
Right. So I was losing my mind. I was like, hey, I need to sanitize what the hell's going on. So I just called my supplier and I said, hey, I know we don't order sanitizer from you. Could you just put some in bottles and ship it over? And so he did. So I had my sanitizer. But along with that, I told him, can you ship a few extra cases, which we could supply to local pharmacies, right? Just in the neighborhood. And
you had one of the most valuable commodities at the time. You're holding gold.
I mean, you wait till you hear the whole story. And so they contacted us, the store managers, because I left my number and name, and I said, hey, this is a donation. If he can help with anything, let us know.
Yeah.
They said, hey, that was great, but we need a lot more. And I said, hey, if you need more, you're gonna need to get the head office to be involved in this, because we had to place orders. And, they actually couldn't place the order with us. They had to go.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so we shipped these boxes to these local store managers, who in turn asked us to place an order with their head office. So we got a call from this, multi-billion-dollar corporation in Canada, and they wanted to place an order for sanitizer. And I started chatting with them about volumes and things. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be like a nice $500,000-$600,000 order.
Yeah.
And they were asking us about all the volumes we could do, how quickly we could do it.
Yeah.
And they ended up placing an order for around $27 million of sanitizer.
27 million?
It was just...
Was this 2020 or is it still 2019?
No, this was 20... No. Well, COVID didn't really hit until 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020 March. That was when it was fully hitting.
This was 2020.
Okay, this is fully 2020. 27 million. That is nuts.
It's insane. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell? Like, did she just make a mistake? Like, so I double checked, and
is there like an extra zero? Like, is it 2.7?
Yeah, because even that would be good. But she, and then they asked me, can you deliver this many? Like, do you have the capacity? And in the back of my head, I had like 15,000 question marks. Do I have the capacity? I don't even know how I'm going to fund this. But I told her, yeah, we got the capacity, no problem. And then she said, can you deliver it here in time? In about 95 days or something. And again, 15,000 question marks. But I said, I don't think that should be a problem. We deliver stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I said that at that time was because that evening I was going to have confirmation whether I would be able to do it or not.
Yeah.
So I told her.
Well, you sort of verbally is going to be.
Told her verbally, and I said, hey, I will.
I'll confirm.
But
it should be fine.
Yeah, but I don't see any problems.
Yeah.
So, I found out that we were within the boundaries of when they needed it delivered.
Oh.
If we could express ship. So we had to pay a lot more for shipping.
Yeah.
And I said, no problem. And so we had this humongous $27 million order, and I went to bat. I just, went to a bank here, TD Canada, got a loan to basically start production. And, I had signed a contract with them. Basically, if you're a brand and you're working with one of these big box retailers, you have to go with their terms. You don't get to dictate the terms. Yeah. Now, one of the things in there is we can cancel the orders anytime. This is just our standard policy. So I knew going in with that risk. I tried modifying it, and they said, this is going to require 6 layers of approval and probably 6 months.
So it's a huge risk, but
yeah,
the reward was also there. So you're just like, fuck it, let's do it.
And I knew I could strike out, but I also knew I could hit a home run. Yeah. My eyes were more set on the home run than on the potentially striking out. And so, we started production, and I hired a couple of guys just to remain in the factory day in, day out. They were just supposed to, because I couldn't fly to the factory. Like there were travel restrictions. And so every hour we had to produce a few thousand units, and they were just coming out like, oh. And
so this is the same factory that's supplied for your skincare brand?
Correct.
I got it. So they happen to also do,
they didn't happen to, but they did it for us.
Yeah.
And because when you're a cosmetics factory,
you
can put anything in a bottle.
Yeah, you're right. And they could just get the raw. Like it shouldn't be complicated. Hand sanitizer is not rocket science.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we started to get, I don't know, more than a dozen containers on the way.
Okay.
And then I sent deposit for the next batch of containers to be produced. And then by the time this first batch arrived here, the second batch was about to be finished. And so I paid for that. And they were asking for a deposit for the third batch, which had to start. But in order for that third batch to start, the first batch had to deliver, because then we would collect the payment and then pay them. So the line of credit is like quickly getting maxed out. This company, they basically, the retailer, we called them. We said, hey, the product is here. We're actually ahead of schedule by 7 or 8 days. So when would you like this delivered? And they said, we actually need a couple of weeks because supply chain at that time was really messy. That was very chaotic.
So they couldn't receive it.
They couldn't receive it, and we couldn't keep it at the border. This is very, very expensive.
So you had to store it.
And I couldn't store it. It's a huge amount of volume. Because we didn't have our own warehouse space.
Yeah.
We used to use other warehouses. So I think it's short-term storage for all those containers, paying something like 20, 30,000 a month for the storage for those containers. And I didn't think it would be longer than a month.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, whatever. And then 2 weeks passed. There was no response. And my supplier is waiting for the next payment. And we just stopped hearing back from the retailer. And as you can imagine, I was a little worried.
A little. Just a little bit.
Yeah. And so, about a week and a half passed, and we were just starting to have the scaries. And I hadn't told anybody on the team about this because I did not want them to panic. But they eventually, and at this time, I had to take cash flow out of my main business to pay for the deposit for the third business, for the third order, because I didn't want to delay it. But I told the supplier, hey, don't start producing yet. I just want you to hold this in the event we are getting paid, and then I'll just send you a message. You can start production. I just don't want their delays with the wire payment. And we get an email from the retailer saying, we were very incorrect in our forecast, and we have to cancel everything.
That is fucking nuts.
Yeah, in that moment, I was basically, facing bankruptcy because this was like millions and millions of dollars on the line, and I personally guaranteed everything. It was not a pretty picture, and at this point, I had to pause all of my campaigns on Amazon because, I didn't know when and if I was going to be able to replenish inventory. Yeah, because we didn't have the cash for the inventory. Yeah, so I didn't want the inventory that was in the warehouses to run out. So we stopped all of our advertising, and I started to see our bestsellers ranks go down from like 10 to 100 to 1,000. It was just painful to watch. That's the kind of thing as an entrepreneur, which when you're in that situation, you gotta level up, because you get this part of the package of what you started the package deal for. You're gonna get a big high, but then you're gonna get a big low. Yeah. Essentially I ended up having to negotiate with them. I had to put a little bit of pressure, just like say, hey, I'm going to have to get lawyers involved, even though I knew I didn't have much of a chance.
Yeah.
I said I was going to.
It's definitely their fault, but I mean, technically their contract covers it, but
honestly, it wasn't their fault. I agreed to a contract.
They fucked up their estimates. I mean, but the contract just it covers their ass, but it's not morally speaking. I think it's their fault for sure.
But I mean, I just like to take the ownership. I got to own it.
I think that perspective helps you move forward versus
And I told them, hey,
so you knew the risk and you accepted it at that point, right?
I did, and it was not fun to deal with. But I remember I told them I'm gonna be left with no choice but to dump these millions of bottles outside of your warehouse midnight tonight, because this is yours. It doesn't belong to me. Yeah. And they started to panic a little. They said, you can't do that.
You literally said, if you don't take this, I'm gonna tell.
No, I literally was gonna. And
because you don't want to pay $30,000 to hold it, right?
I couldn't pay $30,000.
Yeah, you couldn't. Yeah,
I couldn't pay it. And then the storage guy was at this point freaking out. So he needed to clear up space in his warehouse.
That's so crazy.
And luckily,
sorry, when you said dump it, you meant like whatever the container, you just put the boxes into the thing. You weren't gonna like take out each bottle and pour it out.
No, not
For some reason, why my head got to feel so each bottle. I don't know why I just thought of that.
If I could, I probably would have at that point. But no, I just meant I'll leave the case.
Okay, yeah.
And you know, the agonizing thing was that the same product, there was a lot of demand for it.
Yeah.
Right. And there were retailers in the US who were ready to take it.
Oh,
All of it.
oh,
And the only problem was it's classified as a drug, hand sanitizer.
so you have the DIN number.
You gotta have a DIN in the US, and in Canada it's called NPN.
Yeah.
And to relabel each of those units was actually going to cost more than it was to create the unit because of the labor here.
That's
right?
crazy.
So I had customers ready to take it.
You had you were like, oh my, like, because when you first thought of that, you're like, oh, that's a really good plan B, and then you had to come to the realization that it wasn't feasible.
Yeah, and so it just wasn't going to work. And then
Jesus.
and then so it was that, and then I said, hey, there's a friend of mine writing a front page story in the National Post about how giant retailers are taking advantage of small Canadian businesses. And I didn't have that friend, but it worked. And so they took enough to help me break even. And so I was out of that situation.
Breaking even is great.
Yeah, but it was still
You're probably aged like 5 years in that. However,
surprised. No, totally.
Yeah. I think just you're going through life and death in a way.
And you got a kid. You got a baby there now, right? Which is different from when you're just. I think when you're by yourself, it's like, okay,
What's the worst?
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you got dependents, it changes the whole thing. And then
You feel like after that experience, you're like nothing can shake you anymore. Just like you're like I've seen it all. Like how much can?
I mean, it was pretty brutal. And I remember even after they took delivery and we broke even, I was still left with a huge problem, which was I still have millions of bottles of the sanitizer.
Yeah,
And I can't dispose it because you can't dispose sanitizer the way you can dispose garbage. It's half the product.
You'd have to pay to get it disposed. I
And
guess.
it would cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands to just dispose it. And I actually know somebody in the US who was in a similar boat, and they actually burnt all of their product.
That's fucking crazy.
And they ended up getting sued by the government of California because of all the toxic stuff that was in the river. But I mean, I wasn't going to do that, but I had to figure out how to get rid of all of this sanitizer.
Did you consider selling it to other retailers? Or?
Yeah, but there's only one $50 billion company in Canada who can take all of that set.
You're right. And you could sell on Amazon, but like I guess
No.
it's just not working. It's just the unit economics wouldn't work out.
The problem at that point was so many other people had gotten into that game.
True.
By now, the margin was gone.
Yeah.
So I had this ingenious idea. I went on Facebook Marketplace and I created a listing for free sanitizer for anybody who wants sanitizer. And when they would reply back, I would say, hey, great. Only one little problem. I can't send you a bottle. I'll have to send you a pallet. And the pallet is like that, right?
Yeah, no, there's probably like 500 bottles of sanitizer in there, maybe more, like maybe 1,000.
No, 10,000 plus.
In one pallet?
Depending on the size. So there were 3 different sizes. There was a 100 ml, there was a 300 ml, there was 500 ml. So depending on which size. And because what I needed to do, I needed to cast a wide net, have a big one.
Yeah.
And then I can tell them, hey, this is going to be a pallet.
Yeah.
And man, I got rid of so many pallets sanitizer that way.
People were down.
Yeah, people were down. They were going to just...
And it was completely free, or did they have to pay for shipping?
No, they didn't have to pay anything.
Okay.
Shipping was taken care of by, partly by me, partly by the, the storage company.
I see.
And
okay, that's actually genius. Like it's probably, in hindsight, that's like one of the best things you could have done.
Well, it was everywhere in churches. It was all over just university campuses and like...
Yeah.
And it actually turned out to be the best-selling sanitizer during COVID in Canada. Because we sold so many through the different retailers that took it from us.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, that was a close call. And that was one experience I could have lived without, It was... I would definitely not wish that on my worst enemy. It was bad.
That's crazy. You went through you went to hell and back to just break even, and survive.
But honestly, it's one of those things that school really can't teach you. Because literally somebody would have to show up with a gun to your face for you to feel what I felt.
Yeah.
Right? And school could never have taught me that.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I know that is survivable. You can live past that. Like, every problem is solvable.
Yeah.
And so in hindsight, it was a great blessing.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it didn't feel like it, Yeah. It was pretty.
That's actually insane.
Brutal.
So then after surviving that, then were your eyesight on exiting the two other?
Well, actually, rewinding back a few months, in that moment of desperation, because this was like a 3-4 month period.
Yeah.
Where this whole negotiation had to go down. I started courting buyers because I needed the cash to like pay off millions and millions in loan.
Yeah.
Luckily, nobody wanted to buy because there was a lot of risk involved with this
at the time.
Yeah. And I say luckily because I ended up, exiting later for way better valuation. But at that time, I was, when the wrong time to sell is when you're needy. When you're
down
sell,
bad, you're desperate.
If you need to sell, you should reevaluate. So I got lucky that it didn't sell, and then I just buckled up. I said, "Hey, we're gonna revamp this whole thing." And the reason was, if you're buying a company where the founder or the owner is telling you, "Hey, the bestseller rank right now is 5,000, but trust me, it can come back to 10." That's not a compelling. There's
And it's like, why would anybody want to buy that? Like,
but that's what ended up happening. Like our sales, bounced back.
Yeah.
All the bestseller ranks came back, except in a couple of cases. And, it was about a year and a half afterwards that, actually 2 years after that whole episode that we ended up getting acquired. And at that point, we were actually in a position where I didn't want to sell. I was a little cautious about selling. And that's when you do want to sell, because that's when...
and were you approached first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a boutique banker who we had signed up, and he had thrown out seeds here and there.
Yeah.
And we'd been having conversations with different buyers, and this was another thing. I think when you're going to market, like, there's no rush to sell.
Yeah.
Right. You can take your time to do the deal on your own terms.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And then with this one, we ended up getting acquired, and then that was just its own chapter. And then since then I've just been involved in these buying other companies now.
So so you basically sold 2 Amazon brands, one DTC brand, which is a skincare one. And after selling that in 2022, at the time, were you like, did you have any active businesses still running? Or was it let's just kind of almost like a clean slate?
Clean slate.
Okay. Was it, how long, what did that feel like? Just going through acquisitions and selling and kind of, reaping the rewards of like your labor.
Yeah.
Feeling like, because I spoken to a founder recently who he's going through LOI, he's about to go through DD, and he for him, he's like, I'm really looking forward to just like not do anything for a month. It's like, I've been doing this for years with no breaks. Like, he was really looking forward to that. What was it like for you to?
Well, for a month, it was exactly that. Yeah. It was just like a month or 2 months of just like pure bliss. Just like,
just wake up, calendar's empty.
Yeah, totally. Like, calendar's empty. You're now thinking about what am I going to do next, which is always a interesting headspace to be in.
Feels like you're single again, like business-wise, right? Like, you're not tied down to anything.
Totally.
It's exciting.
And I think a post-exit founder has context of what he should avoid next.
Yeah.
From what he has done, which might be stupid or whatever it is. And so I knew I could take time to, I wasn't in a rush. And but it wasn't that long before I started to really get all worked up, and it was not fun after like a couple months.
Yeah.
For 2 months I traveled everywhere, like took my family, we went to England and like, just did everything we wanted to do. But then we we got back and I found that I was just being ordered around the home by my wife. Hey, change the diaper. Can you bring the groceries? I felt like I went from being CEO to like grocery boy. And it was like, you know,
Yeah, you're like, now that I don't have anything going on, I guess I've got to help.
and I didn't have a good excuse. Like, yeah, I have to. You know, I'm making a joke of it, but there was something in the back of my head telling me like, what are you doing? You know, like, you can't just like relax.
Yeah.
I just couldn't relax.
And at the time, I guess 2 years ago, you're in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
At the time you were 30, like, what?
34.
Yeah, that's still quite, like, that's very young to retire, like at 34. Like, I know some people want to do that whole fire thing, but I think from what I hear and read, it's just like people don't actually want to retire early. Like, you want to have the money to retire early. You don't want to actually retire. You want to just keep doing stuff that you enjoy.
The thing is, the only reason somebody looks forward to retiring is because they can't retire, right? If you don't have to retire, you're not thinking retiring.
Yeah.
And I think I was already for like almost a decade in this headspace of what is retire? Like, you know, you're so in the grind of building. No, retirement was like not even a concept. I still don't understand why somebody would want to retire unless they can't work or, so, you know, I think I just enjoy building, right? And if you're enjoying building, why would you want to retire?
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so, but, you know, I just was starting to get really, you know, I don't know what the word is to
like
describe it.
Fancy, just like you want to do something. You were just like sitting around. Yeah.
Yeah. And because when you have a ship that's on its course and you're maneuvering it, there's a lot of joy in that, right? Like you're coming to work every day or every week, every month.
Yep.
Things may not go exactly the way you want them to go that month, but you're still on the ship. You're still exploring. And when you're no longer on the ship, you're just like looking at the ocean. It's like, you know, you don't want to watch the ocean. You want to be on it. And
So that's really tough because like you probably have a ton of founder friends. You also see, I think as a founder, you just see opportunity everywhere, right? So you probably have a bunch of ideas in your head that you're like, oh, is that it? Is that it? But then you're in that phase of figuring things out.
And I did not want to do another D2C brand or e-commerce brand. I just didn't want to do one more, which is what everybody around me was suggesting I try out because I could easily do it.
Yeah.
But
So why is that? Tell me a bit more about.
Well, because, you know, I was young enough to forge a new career. And if I didn't do it, then the window to be able to try it was going to just get smaller and smaller because you don't make a big career change in your 50s or 60s. Like, try it while you can.
Yeah.
And unless, you know, that was the only thing I wanted to do, which was not the case. Yeah, I just felt, you know, there has to be other businesses that I can try rather than just like primarily selling online. And so that's what really made the next steps a little bit more difficult because I knew what I did not want.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what I did want. And so I went through this period of searching and exploring until a friend of mine who comes from private equity, he approached me and he asked me if you want to buy a company. And I said, sure, man. Better than being a grocery boy here. Like, I'll come with you. So we started looking at businesses to buy. And, you know, that was this whole different journey. But I found myself in the world of acquisitions, kind of indirectly.
So for you, it seems to me like what you value a lot is having this like freedom or almost as like a venture to explore other things, and you didn't want to be stuck in D2C, or you're like, oh, I've already done so much in D2C and e-com, and now you want to have the freedom and the joy of just exploring other things. Is that kind of what, you know what I mean? And versus like, if you were thinking about, oh, if I just want to make the next $1 million or $10 million as soon as I can, the best shot is in D2C, but then that wasn't the primary motive for you.
That was not the primary motive, for sure. But the other thing I recognized was when I started to look at businesses that had been around for longer than I was alive.
Yeah,
I started to realize that there's a lot more low-hanging fruit with businesses that are not in e-commerce. Because what happens in e-commerce is it's so cutting edge. Like you either adapt or you die. Like,
It changes really fast.
there's 20-year-olds coming in and trying all sorts of new things that will come for your lunch, right? If you don't stay up to speed. And like right now, I've been out of e-commerce for 2 years, and there's so many new things that have happened since then. Like I would have to go back and learn a lot to just get caught up to speed. That doesn't exist in a lot of these other industries, and that creates a big opportunity for somebody who can bring that e-commerce and digital experience
to something more traditional.
Where the founder is sitting on so much low-hanging fruit, he doesn't recognize it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so that it started with the idea that I don't want to just do this one thing, even though I could easily do it. But then it kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, only if I look away from where I'm currently looking will I see new things and where new opportunity is. And that's what ended up happening in it. And the other thing is, as an entrepreneur, I just found it very appealing to have a diverse skill set. And I think a business like e-commerce doesn't utilize all of your faculties. Like it utilizes some of it, but like if I'm involved in like an agricultural based business, it's going to utilize a different part of my mental faculties that were never utilized in the other area. And I find a lot of joy in that.
Yeah.
Because now I'm basically adding new ammunition in my, ammunition box in terms of like what I see myself 10, 15 years from now as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Having experienced the breadth of different experiences.
That's really cool. I feel like you're definitely more of like a scholar type. Like you enjoy learning and exploring things. That's really cool. So then you spent the past 2 years looking at businesses to buy. You ended up buying, I think, 2 recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about, how did you decide? What was it like?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, buying a business is a completely different beast than starting one. Starting one is not for everybody, and buying one is not for everybody. But we looked at, the goal was really to just find a good lower middle market company. We were looking at companies anywhere from 1 to 5 million in annual profits. And we were very agnostic to what was out there. So we looked at companies from distribution, to manufacturing, to bakeries, to water well drilling, to cleaning companies. And the one we stumbled upon that we bought initially is this mobile agricultural cleaning company, where the company will send its fleet of trucks to different customer sites and clean their barns and the farm. And this company's been around for 35, 40 years, and has a track record of doing the kind of jobs that a new startup can't really easily do. They do very specialized cleaning.
Yeah, the barrier to entry is kind of steep in this. Yeah.
And so we acquired that company, and I'm not involved in that on a day-to-day level. My other 2 partners are. So they, joined the company. One of them is the CEO. The other one is working alongside him, and they're growing it. So the idea was that we would acquire a few of these companies over time. And that was the first acquisition. And we're just about to close the second. The second one just closed. Just waiting for transfer. It's this new company called, it's not a new company, it's been around for 23 years, called jobs.ca. And that's the second one. It's very, very different. One cleans chicken shit. Yeah. And the other one is going to provide jobs to Canadians.
Yeah.
So, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah. So it seems like you're kind of on the precipice of this like new chapter. I mean, you're already in it, and how are you liking the day-to-day? It seems like buying or acquiring businesses, it seems like you're not, at least with the agricultural one, mobile cleaning, you're not in the day-to-day ops as much. So do you like this new dynamic of, being like more higher level thinking, bigger strategic things versus, I think, back then you were more in like the operational level? Like how do you just like this new dynamic, this new change of pace? How do you like it?
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Like there's nothing more interesting than to talk to a founder who's taken 30 years to build a company, and now he wants to exit, and he's telling you everything about how he started, why he started it, why his kids aren't taking it over, how, who the employees are, what he sees it can turn into. And he's telling his story.
Yeah.
And, it's a real story, which you get to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so it's very fascinating. But it's fascinating on one level. From the level of getting in and getting my hands dirty, that's its own joy. And, I am itching for that, which I'm going to start doing relatively soon. But it's a totally different, I think it's a very enjoyable experience. Even if somebody is not sold on the idea of buying a company, I think the exercise of speaking to business owners like this can really open up interesting avenues. And so I just like the idea of seeing what companies are out there and talking directly to the founder.
Gotcha.
It's been fun.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Give me some rapid fire business ideas. I feel like founders always have stuff that they're scheming on, maybe they won't do or not.
Yeah.
So it could be D2C, it could be non-D2C, but things that you're like, oh, someone should start this, but I don't have the time for it. But just give us some cool ideas you've been thinking about.
That I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
One interesting one that I recently was brainstorming with actually my partner is there will be a lot of robots in 10 years from now, or who knows how many years, but there's going to be more robots than humans at some point. And the companies that are going to be primarily involved in the manufacturing of robots aren't going to be the ones servicing them. So a company like Figure or Boston Dynamics, it won't have enough capital to meet the demand for the robots that it's manufacturing. What that will do is it'll create this entire economy around the servicing of robots and also the renting out of robots. Because Figure and Boston Dynamics, their goal is to sell as many robots as they can.
And not everyone needs to buy one. They could just lease or
there's going to be one type of customer, which is they don't need one. They don't need a full robot. They might need it just to do their dishes at the restaurant. And then the robot is idle. So it needs to go to the next restaurant.
Gotcha. They only need it for the evenings and the other one.
Yeah. Right?
I see.
So they're not going to buy it if they need it fractionally. Then there's the kind of customer, let's say this warehouse, which might need 5 robots.
Uh-huh.
Some of these companies may not have the capital to buy 5 robots because each of these robots is, currently it's around 70, 80,000 each. So there is a market for those robots, those customers also, where you can buy these 5 robots and then just lease it to them.
Gotcha.
So there's going to be this entire economy powered by robots, which is going to cause rethinking around how do you bring them into the economy? How do you bring them to consumers? So I thought that it would be kind of like car dealerships.
Yeah.
But, the dealerships don't make their own cars.
Yeah.
But they're all in business.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For the reasons that car manufacturers...
Robot dealerships, for real.
Yeah. So that's one. And then, it's supposed to be rapid fire, so I don't know how many more you...
No, it doesn't matter. Anything that's top of mind, it doesn't matter how many...
One that we're thinking about is hiring in the past. Our buddy Nick is trying to hire CFO right now, right? And
any CFOs listening, please apply.
Yeah, any CFOs listening, apply, okay? Maybe we'll leave a link below. And that's a very hit and miss process. And it's very, very much dependent on humans to evaluate the candidates, to source the candidate. Everything from sourcing to screening, evaluation, and then passing it on to the client. We now have our hand on this platform where we're thinking there's an opportunity to automate a lot of those things. We've been talking to a lot of recruiters who say that...
Is this Jobs.ca?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're talking to recruiters who are saying, if we could find something that allows us to evaluate a person's communication skills, basic communication skills.
I think I've spoken to this. They were part of a YC batch maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
But it's basically AI interviews where the AI was it sounds really natural.
Yeah.
And you're basically asking the questions that you want to ask, and they're interacting with the candidate, and then they would get an AI summary and recording of it after. So essentially, as a recruiter, you get to listen at 2x speed of these 5 different recordings for showing up 5 times. Totally. I don't know how well they're doing, but I know the founders. So I feel like that's in line with what you were thinking.
Totally.
But it's somewhere just leveraging technology to how do you scale it, right? Because right now it's just like a one-to-one. You got to hit the emails, do the phone calls. It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that whole space is like very exciting, right?
Yeah.
Automating and
hiring is really, really tough, honestly.
Yeah. So that's another one. And then I've looked into M&A, M&A where you're just helping business owners get their company acquired. We actually, when we were deal sourcing for ourselves, we built this internal tool that basically automated sourcing the deals for us. So we built this tool where we would specify in basically natural language, we're looking for this type of company in this industry, this many employees. And this thing would go online, the agent, and it would scour the web looking for X type of company in a specific industry. It would make a list of the company, and then next to it would the owner's name, the owner's email, and then it would start sending out the emails.
Gotcha.
Based on, whatever relevant information they found, and then it would schedule the calls for us. And so it was essentially like a junior analyst.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of those kind of interesting automation opportunities,
Very
virtually everywhere.
Yeah, you're scheming very hard. Okay, next one. Okay, this is something interesting. So, what are, if people are listening to this, like, what are things that you need help with right now? Whether it's personal or, I don't know, maybe you're like, hey, I'm trying to train for a triathlon, or I don't know, like in my business, I'm looking to hire, I don't know, like a CFO, for example. Like, this is a segment where you can talk about what you need help with. And if someone's listening that could help out, they could reach out and, just if you put it out there, I always feel like, if you put it out there, it could come back kind of thing.
Yeah, no, totally. Right now I'm venturing into the world of HR, hiring, recruiting. And that's a world that feels very much like e-commerce did 10 years ago. I'm fresh, new. And so I think anybody that has deep expertise or experience in the world of HR,
DM me, hit you up.
Yeah, I would love to chat. And it doesn't matter if they've been there for like 2 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
I would just love to see how they're currently approaching their work.
I know one person, she runs her own kind of mini recruiting firm. I think she started 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was just, I was also early on in my business, which I'll make an intro after, Bush. I know she's doing well.
Sweet.
Okay, this is interesting. So alongside your businesses, like throughout the 6 brands, it could be any of them. What are some things that you've done that has really good ROI, but you just cannot measure it? Because I think a lot of brand builders or founders or marketers are like too obsessed with, what's the ROI on this? What can I measure? Like, what are things that that you've done that yielded good ROI, but you cannot, you can't just pull out a calculator and be like, that's what it did. You know what I mean? Right. What are some things like that?
I'd say the biggest one is probably sharpening your own mind. Like, you can't value that.
Yeah.
And routinely going in and just, looking at what are the thought patterns that you are finding yourself in without trying to change them.
Like a self-audit /
It's what could be more important and valuable than that? Yeah. Because if you're the founder of a company, your thinking is ultimately which will reflect in the size and success of that company. And so I think that is probably the most invaluable and thing that a founder could do in terms of you can't measure that. Like,
it's the Kermit the Frog meme where he's looking at himself in the mirror. Right. Do you have a specific process for how you approach that? Do you routinely do it like once every quarter, or are you like very mindful about it, or is it just kind of like intuitively, okay, like I gotta check in, and like it's been kind of,
No, I feel like it's for me it's not for me it's like a daily thing. Like I just find myself trying to evaluate what are the blind spots currently what am I not able to see with regards to where I want to get to.
I see.
Right. So like I think every entrepreneur has something that they're aspiring to, right? Whether it's X amount of dollars or X number of employees in my company or, X percentage of market share, whatever it is. The critical thing to evaluate is, am I there yet? And if not, why not? Right? And I feel like we get so caught up with the day-to-day building, the day-to-day motions, and almost a robotic existence. That
you just autopilot a lot.
Autopilot, and the dangerous part is when we think something is working, because then that's when we're less likely to look elsewhere. Right? It becomes a very comfortable.
Yeah, because if it wasn't working, you would be looking. Right. It's only when you think it's working that you're chilling out. Yeah,
totally.
That makes sense.
But the question of where do I want to go, and am I there yet?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, I'm not where I want to go, why not? And if the urgency with which that is evaluated is what will kind of bring to surface the things that are being ignored because things are going well.
Yeah. That's a great segue into my next question, which is, what are your goals for the next 6 to 12 months? So this could be personal or business.
Yeah.
Curious if,
Yeah. Personally, I got 2 kids, and so just, that's like a fun aspect of life. So I'm just excited to just see them grow. But on a business side, it's an exciting time for me because I feel like I'm in that startup phase. I think there's a real downside of being in a ship that's already on the ocean sailing, and the downside is that you're not really you're not hunting as much. You're not, and so I feel like right now I'm in that mode where I'm itching to hunt, and I gotta.
And you like to crack it, and you like to try things, and that's really sad.
So I think the next 6 to 12 months, I'm just mostly interested in, taking a crack at this new acquisition that we have and taking it to the next level.
I've got 2 questions and we're done. So this one is, any particular, I guess, quotes, or it doesn't have to be from famous people. It could be something that one of your best friends have said.
Yeah.
Any particular quotes that you feel like that stuck with you, that really resonated with you, or,
Yeah. So, no, totally. I mean, my favorite quote of all time is, go as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll be able to see farther. And because there's too much time wasted not knowing about what might happen down the line. And it's almost irrelevant because until you've gotten to where you can see, right? That's the only way to see what comes after that. And so I find that to be a useful quote, and just in terms of even if you're unsure about where this is going to go or how you're going to get somewhere, just do what you can do, right? Like right now, there is something you can pursue, and so that one I think is a good quote.
I like that. I see, because I think about when you met the guy who did Amazon.
Yeah.
And then you went home just like, all right, the foot thing. All right, let's do 100 or 1,000 units. I kind of see that from your story. It's just like, you're like, I can see this far. Let's just do that right now, and then we'll figure out the next step when we get there.
Totally. And I mean, in hindsight, if I hadn't gone and done a bunch of market research or talked to my friends about it,
would have started like maybe 6 months later.
I was probably already I was done selling those 1,000 masks before the next guy was.
Yeah.
So I think they're really just see what you can, and then just go to it. And
I like that.
One of the quotes that I recently came across is, what was it? If you don't have what you want, you don't really want it. And that's virtually true for most people, whether or not.
I've never heard of that one. This one hit.
Because, the things that people have are the things that they can't live without. Most people can live without the things that they claim that they want. That's why they don't have it. Like, they don't find themselves dying to get those things.
Yeah.
Right? And that obsession is not there.
Yeah.
The lip service is there. I want X, Y, and Z.
It's fun to talk about it.
Yeah, it's fun time pass.
Yeah.
But I think that one is true for vast majority of people, that the only reason you don't have what you want is because you don't truly want it.
Oh, damn.
And
that's a good quote.
Yeah.
That's a good quote.
And then I like the Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You know,
It's just your mindset. You decide.
you don't necessarily decide, because everybody with the positive thing,
Yeah.
it's just saying the fact that if you don't think you can do something, you can't do it. Don't go read a positive psychology book about it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, that one, right? And people tend to know what they feel like won't happen. Somehow there's, you know, there's this internal battle.
Sweet. Okay, we're actually down to the last question now. So this is, I was gonna ask you what would you do if you won the lottery, but I feel like that question wouldn't be a good question because I feel like I already know your answer. You would just be like, okay, I'm just gonna build the next thing, right? Like I don't think unless you had a different.
I guess if you had to remove that option from my, no, totally. Like I would probably just be doing what I'm doing. And I mean, if I won the lottery and I couldn't just go buy another company or, you know, build something, I would probably, I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
That's probably what
I'm not asking that question. So the question I want to ask is, what is one topic or maybe even a question that, you know, you wish people asked you more about, or you wish, you know, you could talk to people with a bit more? Because I think there's always random topics or things that we're interested in that we care about, but you know, it just doesn't naturally come up, right? Maybe it could be spirituality, it could be whatever it is, but wonder if there's anything like that for you.
Yeah, it's not so much that I wish people would talk to me or anything like that, but the one topic that I could talk to somebody day and night is the idea of really conquering your mind. You know, it's because everybody lives with this one machine inside of their head called their mind, right? Which speaks to them every day, nonstop, from the moment they wake until the moment they go to sleep. From, you know, childhood until adulthood, and that's been constant throughout centuries, right? So somebody 12, 13, 1400 years ago was just as absorbed with their mind as somebody today. And so, you know, the idea of really like trying to understand your mind and taking it in the direction that you want to go, rather than being taken in different directions that it's taking you on.
You want to steer the ship.
I find that an extremely interesting topic, because that has huge ramifications, right?
I mean, it literally dictates your life, right? Your mind, it's your thoughts, action, everything.
If you were the same person that you are, but with a different, you know, view on life, you would be in a different place in life.
Yeah, exactly.
So that view on life and that view of things, of who you are, what you consider to be possible by yourself, that's just a fascinating topic. Right?
100%. I want to geek out about that like after the pod. I want to talk to you more about it. But dude, it was really nice having you. It's really cool to get to know your story. Like it was really fun because it's like I basically knew very little, and I got to just, you know, like experience it firsthand versus I know some people I already know their story and I get to pretend to know. This is like so much fun. But yeah, thanks for just sharing, and I definitely learned a lot. It was really cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, this was fun. You know, went by faster than what is it? 2 hours now, Tuan? You're ready to get the hell out of Tuan.
Building a D2C brand is a tough and lonely journey, but it just takes one friend along the way to make it a lot more enjoyable and fun. And that's what we heard and experienced on this journey ourselves. So that's why we built Ecom North, a community built by D2C founders for D2C founders. Last year, we hosted the largest D2C conference in Canada at the Sheraton. You guys loved it and wanted more. So this year, we're hosting intimate retreats, founders dinners across North America, a 2-day conference in Toronto, a conference in Singapore, and last but not least, this podcast. And our first retreat is actually coming up next month. It's a 3-day, 2-night retreat in Whistler from January 23rd to 25th with 20 fellow brilliant D2C founders, including household names like Frank and Oak, Vessi, Monos, and many, many more. There's still 10 spots left, and you can apply and learn more at retreat.ecomnorth.com. If you're in the D2C space, and whether you're a founder or an operator, and you want to meet and connect with your peers, learn from industry experts, get inspired to build, and maybe find a friend along this journey, then make sure to subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on whatever social app that you use to stay in the loop of what we got going on.